Well, now for a new take on ocean conservation. The tiny island of Niue, located in Polynesia, just northeast of New Zealand, has found a creative way to protect its waters. It's asking sponsors to pay $148 to protect 1 square kilometre of ocean for a period of 20 years. The island hopes to raise $18 million. Niue is one of the smallest countries in the world. Its ocean territory is 1,200 times larger than its landmass. The sponsorship is to help pay for ocean management, to help with the costs of maritime security and protection of marine life. They've already raised $7 million, but the island is stepping up its marketing campaign this year to try and get to that $18 million target. Well, Coral Pasisi is the trustee of Niue Ocean Wide. That's a charitable trust that handles these donations. She's also the designer of the Niue Ocean Conservation Commitment, and she joins us now from Niue. Coral, welcome to the programme. Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Very good to have you with us. Perhaps a chance for you to tell us a bit more about Niue, first of all, because most people listening probably won't know where it is on the map, let alone know much about it. So give us a flavour of your island.
Well, sure, and thanks for having me on the show. So Niue is one of the largest raised coral atolls in the world. So we are essentially 100% made of coral that's been pushed up out of the ocean over thousands of years. So we're like a very large coral museum, if you like, a real honeycomb of limestone caves and ancient coral gardens with trees growing on them. And our country is really, as you said, only about 1/6 the size of London for comparison, so it's pretty small. But we could fit the entire United Kingdom into our ocean jurisdiction or space. So we're a very large ocean state, but a very small a small island developing state. So about 99.9% ocean, and essentially 40% of that is protected now as a large-scale marine protected area.
Your London comparison is a nice one for people to picture. I also read that it takes a mere 2 hours to drive around the entire edge of the island. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Well, now that our roads have been fixed, it might be an hour and a half.
Well, even better. What about the challenge you're now facing in terms of preserving that marine life and this sponsorship initiative that is underway? How much difference do you hope that will make?
Yeah, it's actually a real game changer for us. As you probably know, small island states are on the front line of the impacts of climate change, and our ocean environment is really suffering on those front lines. And we really produce the smallest amount of carbon dioxide emissions than anyone in the world. And so we have this real challenge where we are protecting sort of these incredibly large parts of the last healthy blue lung on the planet. But our ability to do that and the resources that we have to do that are diminishing significantly, not of our doing. And so raising the necessary capital to ensure that we can protect that in a meaningful way, so they're not just paper parks, but also provide the sustainable, resilient livelihoods for people is a tough situation. And so this approach really helps to share that cost with everyone who benefits from maintaining these incredible parts of this large, healthy blue lung left on the planet.
I'm going to bring my guests in, Coral. You might want to react to what they say. Eleanor, what's on your mind?
I think that this initiative is so interesting, and particularly the fact that it is locally rooted rather than being run by some big multinational organisation or company. And I think that sense of kind of preserving the ownership of the ecosystem rather than sort of selling ownership rights is really, really critical. So I would love to know if Niue thinks that this model could be exported to other island nations, and if there's been any interest in kind of learning from what's happened there.
Coral, could it go beyond Niue, do you think?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, that was a core part of the design from our perspective, because we do this work voluntarily, but in our day-to-day lives, we've worked in this space for a very long time in the islands. And, we've seen firsthand the rate of degradation and lots of desire for people to protect the ocean. So our countries in the Pacific are not strangers to large ocean protection, but they've all pulled back when the costs have become too high. And so we really look at this as a way to democratize ocean conservation, and that makes it affordable for everyone to continue to stay the course and share the cost of the burden of policing and enforcement, but also a little bit extra to ensure that we create those sustainable livelihoods around what is essentially part of the most beautiful things to see in our part of the world and part of our culture. And so we have had lots of interest from other island countries, from the Caribbean, but also from, places like the Amazon as well, because what we're doing essentially is not monetizing the value. It's not monetizing the actual natural resources. It's monetizing the effort that it takes to keep those resources pristine. So it's like a promise. It's not selling the right to continue to pollute or anything like that, like other credits.
Coral, let me bring Janina in as well.
Yeah, like Elena, I was struck by this wonderful feature of local ownership, but may I ask whether it's also to some extent this sort of creative and local way of thinking about climate change mitigation and adaptation? Is that also a reaction to a sense of kind of abandonment? I mean, we're currently, with the headline story today of the California wildfires, we're learning now that even in rich countries, the most affluent communities ultimately won't be able to completely insulate themselves from the deleterious effects of climate change. And in some sense, that's a way which we could say, well, then we will focus back on ourselves and, our own resilience and adaptation. But it could also go the other way of saying, well, maybe there is a renewed effort then to actually look towards the communities that have borne the brunt up until now and that are significantly less resilient and much more vulnerable to the effects of climate change. Do you have hope that there will be renewed efforts and renewed help from the international community, or do you feel like this is just us fighting for our own space and our own nature and preservation?
Coral, briefly on that, if you would.
Yeah, 100%. I've just come back from the International Court of Justice in December presenting on exactly that issue. We can't access the climate finance that's supposed to be available to help us deal with climate change. So we're figuring out creative ways of doing it ourselves and being completely transparent and open about what it is that people need to protect, and that being a part of that helps with the solution, not just for us, for everyone. We all breathe the same oxygen that's produced from our ocean.
Okay.
So we should all contribute to protecting it.
Thank you so much for coming on. Coral Pasisi, who's the trustee of the Niue Ocean Wide. That's a charitable trust that handles those donations we've been talking about, with that ultimate target they have in mind, $18 million. You're with Weekend from the BBC World Service. The news is next.